GM, we are back. It is Wednesday. Markets are up. The vibes are up. It's day 2 of the Seeker phone being live and out, and I still haven't gotten it. So I am literally by the door waiting for the UPS man to show up, trying to figure out what is going on. Why hasn't it been delivered? But hey, we needed to find out what's happening at MagicBlock. Man, all I know is my Twitter feed has been MagicBlock this, MagicBlock that. MagicBlock is taking over my Twitter feed. So, Andrea, how are you
We must be doing
feeling?
something right.
Hey, man, how are you feeling? How are you doing? How are the vibes? What's the excitement in the office going on right now, man?
Amazing. Thanks for having us, by the way. And I'm still waiting for my Seeker too, of course. Yeah, MagicBlock. I guess I can give you a quick intro about what we do, but fundamentally, we are a real-time engine for fully on-chain games and fully on-chain applications. So we started building MagicBlock with the idea that we wanted to give developers an easier way to build their on-chain experience without compromising with cost, speed, and composability with Solana. And so fundamentally, we're about enabling a new type of categories and kind of application that can run entirely on chain and can compose with mods, with user-generated content, with financialization as well, and doesn't break away from the composability of Solana. So the team is pretty excited. I'm glad that you have been seeing our effort. Community is pretty excited as well. So there is a bunch of new apps and games that are coming live pretty much weekly at this point. So yeah, it's definitely an exciting time for us.
Andrea, I know that you've been doing too many podcasts or spaces or shows because my question to you is, how are you doing? And you went right into, I'm MagicBlock and this is what we're doing. And I'm like, man, the guy is so programmed to be on some shows that just go straight for who are you and what you're doing. But man, how are you doing? How you feeling, man? How are the vibes?
I'm great. Vibes are great. Like the whole team is pumped, and we're just having a great time. Like the whole Solana ecosystem, I think, to your point, with Seeker is pretty pumped up these days.
Andrea, I got $1 million question. It's my icebreaker question. What game did you play growing up?
To me, I think it has to be either Fable or The Elder Scrolls. I've always been a fan of RPG and games that allow you to just fuck around and explore and build up your character. And then, of course, well, Pokemon, which is sort of a RPG as well, like even before console. So yeah, either of those two.
What do you think was the aha moment in your life or your career to get to MagicBlock, playing video games, understanding video games, to being able to say, hey, what do game developers need today? Like, what is the roadblocks that are very much like Web3 facing? We're going through these dynamic like shifts in Web3 gaming. We went very heavy in that play to earn with the Axie days. Then we went shifted into, hey, the blockchain and everything about the blockchain, and forgot about gameplay and or the game itself or what we're playing. Minting NFTs for characters we didn't even know what we'll do in a game, but they were going crazy. To now, hey, show me gameplay, let me play the game, or else I'm not getting involved. What do you think was the aha moment for you and what you were building and how you wanted to get involved in Web3?
So for me personally, it has been loot. So an NFT drop, really, the first time that this idea of having a blueprint within an NFT and then the ability to create a game in a decentralized fashion. Personally, that was the sort of one of the coolest moments that I think triggers something. But for MagicBlock specifically, I don't think there was any specific aha moment. It was just a series of key insights that we got as we kept building and as we kept interacting with developers and talking to our users. And so MagicBlock effectively started with this idea of enabling games, fully on-chain game more specifically, and then through a series of iteration, we landed on building a series of nodes that can be decentralized and then provide verifiable server the same exact way that normally you would use a multiplayer game server effectively. And so there was never a single moment that shape up the current product, but it's always a series of insight that you get by interfacing with the market.
With what you just mentioned and said here, it made me want to think like, what do you think right now is still like the massive issue in Web3 gaming? Like, what do you think is the roadblock still very much facing that a lot of us face? The infrastructure, the tech that you're building is something that, you know, many games probably 3 or 4 years ago that we're building wish they had, right? Because they had to spend the millions of dollars to be able to build something and not allow them to build the game. But you're giving us tools, you're giving us the ability to fast forward and focus on gameplay, right? Focus on what video game designers are meant to be doing. What do you think still though right now is kind of what's hindering us? Why haven't we been able to adopt faster?
It's a $1 million question, if not $1 billion question. But like, I believe fundamentally there is a problem of targeting and a problem of technology. The targeting problem that I'm referring to is that oftentimes crypto founders conflate that are building games, conflate the user base, and vice versa. Traditional gaming folks that come into crypto build different products for users that are not necessarily the best user segment, the best customers for those products. We all know that in crypto there's a ton of financialization, and there are people that tend to own digital assets, perhaps in a much easier way than traditional players. And traditional players, by traditional players, I mean someone that has not interacted with crypto before, and they play games fundamentally to chill, to relax, not necessarily to trade stuff around, to make money out of it. And so I think there is this mismatch between financialized games that promise digital economies, open economies, the ability to resell your assets, resell your skin once you're done with the game, that are marketed towards the mainstream gamers that maybe just want to chill. And then vice versa, there are games that tend to integrate Web3 elements just superficially, but then they try to cater into the crypto natives, which are instead more interested in perhaps the digital economy part of the game, not necessarily the gameplay itself. So it's ultimately a matter of finding the right customer segment for the type of game that you're building. The gaming industry is massive, of course, but there's also been sort of an oversaturation of game genre over the last 4 or 5 years. The revenue is kind of stagnant, and so it's not easy to innovate. But I think crypto provides this fertile ground for experimentation. There's new things that you could do that on the genre side, on the payment side, on the retention side, it's much more easy to retain players if you give them exposure and skin in the game, literally. And then the second problem that I was referring to is technological. A few years ago, it was just very, very hard to build a game, and we all read about a bunch of studios that started building a game. Then a game is a massive feat in and on itself, and then they have to integrate the Web3 element, which is super complex if there's no tool. MagicBlock got started building the Solana Unity SDK, which was the really first plugin to integrate Unity-based game within Solana. And before that, every studio basically had to come out with their own suite of tool and rebuild the wheel every single time. So nowadays, this technological problem is way easier than it used to be if you're integrating Web3 on the surface. If you're trying to build a game that is a bit more edgy or innovative, perhaps a fully on-chain game, a digital world that is built entirely on a blockchain and aims to persist forever, these were a niche category, but I think it's one of the most interesting things that you can do with crypto. Then it's still a massive pain in the ass for developers that have to think about gameplay, art, game design, and also understand Rust, understand Solana program development, and understand the whole Web3 development part. So it's definitely not easy. And but yeah, hopefully we give them the tools to, at least on the technological side, being able to build in a much easier way.
Yeah, it makes me really think of like like you mentioned Unity, but Unreal Engine and everything that out there that exists to build games, like the toolkits that they give you, right? Like the place markers, everything that they give you to be able to build. And you think about MagicBlock, and it's like, hey man, it's the ability to bring things on chain, but also the ability to have the performance needed to build the games that you're looking for and pair them up correctly. So I think it's really cool to hear that aspect of how you are very much understanding what Web3 game developers or game devs need and studios need. Going into a little bit of the actual product here of MagicBlock, it seems like it's a suite of products that you guys have that could fit anybody, really. But where do you think right now the actual main product is for MagicBlock, and where do you think the next 6 months are with the evolution of gaming and where gaming is going? And I say this maybe because there is AAA gaming, there's indie gaming, there's mobile gaming, there's all of it, right? And different things. We're seeing AAA games in Web3 break into PlayStation, Xbox, Steam. We're seeing mobile games now break into the Play Store, Apple Store, and the less friction that it is. Crypto is getting more adopted. It is getting more adopted, regulation and everything. Where do you think MagicBlock right now, product-wise, in the next 6 months, and even now, are really kind of like what's everybody should be tuning into and figuring out, hey, how do we use MagicBlock today?
Yeah, we're definitely skewed toward mobile. The great thing about Onchain games is that they are client agnostic, meaning they could be then deploy on mobile, on web, on consoles potentially. So there's not really like an impediment in terms of once you keep your state on chain, then the game can be everywhere, and you will just interact with the blockchain as the backend essentially, which is what MagicBlock provides. But we definitely have a focus on mobile game. I think initiative like Seeker and the fact that you mentioned that nowadays it's much easier to it's not easy, but it's easier to publish games on the App Store, iOS and Play Store, is definitely where we see the vast majority of the growth in terms of additional user base coming in the next 6 months, 1 year, and to be honest, also medium to longer term. Unity, it's powering 50% of the current mobile games, and so the choice of Unity was also to already sort of allowing developers to build for that. But then again, we don't really have a tech stack that is opinionated in one way or another. If someone wants to build a Unity-based game and deploy it on WebGL on web, it's totally feasible. We're pretty excited about Seeker. We are inviting all our developers to build for Seeker and to meet their users there if they're building for Solana native users. If they are building for a more traditional audience, of course, other type of platform might be better, Steam and whatnot, but then you're really competing with way more games and you're really competing with traditional studios, because at that point, again, it's this user segmentation problem that I was referring to before. You have to pick carefully what is the user base that you're going after. And so with us, with the tool, like to sum up, we are pretty, the tools are agnostic. If you build an on-chain game, you can then deploy that game wherever you want. But we're kind of skewed, at least in our conviction within towards Seeker, towards mobile first experiences.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's really kind of a testament to what you're saying, because I was looking at what you guys have been doing this past month, and I was reading your July report and really seeing like, hey, the Solana turbine, the Magic router, the acquisition, the powering of XO app. I think like there's a lot of things, the in real life things that you guys are doing. It really kind of now starts putting this narrative of, hey, like you guys are really the real deal here when it comes down to helping video game developers, especially when we look at mobile and when we look at what the work has been done and why people are working more. Now it's all starting to come really to color for me. where is now, like, you guys were making an event in Lagos, the
It
game
was the
jam.
community. It was the
Yeah.
community of MagicBlock that organized that.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome, right? Like,
yeah, it's pretty cool.
where do you think a lot of this is now really going for, right? Because when we look at campaigns, when we look at awareness, when we look at marketing, guerrilla marketing, you look at all these things, like, where do you, like, here you're mentioning Secretphone with a huge focus on Secretphone, but we know that as well, like, in order to reach the discoverability that we were just mentioning, right, it will have to be also the App Store, the Google Play Store, things where games are truly discoverable in order to turn on revenue, which is one thing that you mentioned before, is like revenue stagnant. How do you make revenue, right? How do you go to where players are, and how do you make it frictionless is what you guys are essentially doing as well. But where do you think right now, again, is these these partnerships, these announcements that you guys have made? These are pretty massive to me as well. But what would be the next, let's just say, checklist for what you guys, MagicBlock, is offering here in today's day?
Yeah, so I have a bit of a controversial opinion on where studio, especially small studio. I'm talking specifically about indie devs as small studio because those are most of the users that we serve right now, and what they should be thinking in terms of distribution. They should definitely be on all the store possible to get maximum distribution. But I think realistically, it's way easier to get 10,000 users that spend $1,000 on your game and generate $1 million in revenue that way if you are on Solana or on Seeker, than instead having 1 million users that spend $1 on your game each, right? Which is the typical monetization path for mobile games on the traditional mobile games, is 2% of the players that are the so-called whales that spend in to purchase in-game assets. Most likely, that's the vast majority of the monetization. It's in-game purchases, and those players cover up for all the other players that are free riders. They effectively just play for free. They enjoy the game for some time, then whatever, they go to the next one, and 2% of the players instead cover the cost. In crypto, there's way more power users. There's way more high spenders, by virtue of the fact that people are already used to hold digital assets. And there's also a pretty big overlap between gamers and crypto users and crypto natives. And so I think it's a really powerful combination for a most studio to be able to generate revenue that way by catering props into a smaller player base, but they have higher revenue and purchasing power. And so this is a bit of my controversial opinion, as opposed to say, okay, you should go for this. You should definitely shoot for the star. Don't get me wrong. Be in all the marketplace. Try to get to 1 billion users, but start small. Start from like the native distribution channel. iOS is, of course, way bigger than the App Store on Seeker, but there's also a million apps, right? Whereas on Seeker, how many games are gonna launch? Probably less than 50. And so it's very easy to get in front of your users, of new potential users, if you're competing with 50 other games, as opposed to competing with the big companies and 1 million up. So I guess it's a matter of stage, of course. Like, you have to progressively get there. But if I were to build a game nowadays, I would focus on distribution for where the users are right now. Totally different if you're building a game that caters non-crypto natives and caters towards traditional gamers, because at that point, sure, you need to think, where do I meet those users? And they are probably not on Seeker today.
You know, it's funny, you had me kind of really quickly Google is, 150,000, over 150,000 Seeker phones are being shipped, right? That's 150,000 users, right? And you're mentioning less than 50 games possibly being on there, and the opportunity there. And it's funny you say that it's a controversial take, because I've actually been kind of on this like marketing controversial take as well, in the sense that I'm tired of Web3 games trying to go after Web2 users sometimes when we haven't even gone after all the Web3 users, right?
Exactly.
Because I go to conferences, I go to events, and I'm like, hey man, I'm in gaming, and they're like, wait, we have a gaming section, and I'm like, what do you mean? And it's like, yeah, these guys are like in the DeFi section where like there's millions of money being made, and here we are struggling right now in gaming, right? Like there's a very much dry drought that we're in. The hype hasn't really come back yet. It's starting to trend, but for me, it's always been like, why aren't we going after the people that are natively know what crypto is? We don't have to sell them on what crypto is. They already know, they're in this space. Most people are gamers. I mean, at what point, like, look, I think every phone now has pre-installed games and everything. And like everybody's a native gamer somehow and somewhat, or has played games in their life. And it's like, how come we're not targeting them? And this is a phenomenal point you make here. It's like, hey, the Seeker phone has the ability to help you advance what you are, discover where you want to be. And yeah, it's over 150,000 have been ordered. Probably less than 50 games. And yeah, this is the opportunity. And I think this is a great call to action here is like, hey, reach out to MagicBlock, find out what MagicBlock could do for you. Get in touch with the partnership team or the BD team. Tell them what stage of life you are in. I think it was going to be my next question to ask you is like, at what stage of life should a game developer reach out to you? Like, when should somebody be ready to say, hey, I need to integrate to MagicBlock? Because again, there might be a cost also. There might be some funding issues and stuff like that game developers always kind of are wary. I always get like, Jorge, I don't know when I should reach out to them, and I'm always like, reach out whenever, like find out. Like those are the questions you should find out as a lead. But I'd love to hear it from your take.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of helping out developers, we're happy to talk to them whenever, as soon as they have an idea, even just to jam on the idea, from helping them fundraise. Again, our user base is primarily small teams and indie developers, so we're not dealing much with studio that already raised a multi-million-dollar round. But of course, if they need help with our technology there, we're happy to help them out. We're working with bigger companies on other domains because MagicBlock provides this infrastructure not only for games but for application as well. And so we do have a fair amount of bigger companies that are building consumer application. But yeah, for games specifically, usually we can help with introduction. We can help on the tech side. We do have game developers in-house that can help on the game design as well. We can introduce to third-party art studio if they need to outsource part of the art for the development process. So there's really a big extent of help that we think we can give to game developers. I think, yeah, you basically crystallize and summarize my point exceptionally well. I think there's a bit of a stigma with game developers that in building for Web3 users, because a lot of Web3 users are really into financialization and are really into almost trading digital assets, oftentimes even more than enjoying the game. And I think the purists especially have this idea that a game is kind of sacred and a game has to be appealing just because of the lore, because of the art, because of the gameplay, because of so much craft that went into that product. And financialization kind of ruined it. Financialization is dirty in a way in the context of a game. And I don't necessarily agree with that stigma. I think sometimes developers just have to be more practical. Ultimately, a game is a business like anything else. And sure, there's so much that goes into it that is not necessarily just purely utilitaristic. But if you want to build a successful studio, you have to make money. And in order to make money, what's your chance? Do you want to compete with bigger studios on something that you might not necessarily have an edge on? Or do you want to compete, again, back to my point, with 50 other games that might be on the Seeker that are trying to reach and attract 150,000 users, right? So I'm not necessarily saying, hey, just build financialized game. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that sometimes what we tell developer is just to be more practical, and they can create a game that are beautiful, that are craft-worthy, but it also give Web3 native users what they really want in terms of experience.
Yeah, it's like I'll say this. It's great to hear it, and I almost want to like come back to you on like, do you think Web3 gaming has done too much like driven hey, play to earn, win big on these games when they're not ready, right? Have we given away too much money? Because and is money starting to ruin the game, like you mentioned a bit in the sense that I'm here to grind. Like I look at games that I grind on a daily, right? Like I'm not there for the money. I'm there because of like just having fun and escaping, right? And when you put money towards it, does it become a job, right? Does it become a job? And like, you know what happens when something becomes a job? Well, guess what? After a while, he does get tired, and guess what? I don't want to do it anymore. And if the money's there not in return, well, guess what? I'll say this, gamers are the most toxic people on social media, right? We will tell
100%.
everybody in the world, like, this game sucks, and like, you know, they're going to zero and all that stuff. So there are a lot of things there as a marketer to balance. But back to what you're saying is, you know, do we change that? How do we change that? Like, do we offer and do we tell people they're a playtester and not a gamer? Because that's another big thing, right? A lot of the times, 99% of the times in Web3 gaming, you are a playtester. We haven't seen actually a fully polished AAA game yet, right? They're all still in beta and alphas. We haven't seen a full release. So have we been misdeceiving people when they're playing these games and saying you're actually gaming, and then get a misconception of this isn't a game? And it's like, oh no, well, you're actually playtesting a beta.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I think financialization definitely went too far and was ahead of the game itself. Like I in 2021, I was working for a bridge called P Network, and we were helping a lot of studios to embrace Web3 and to create assets, create NFT, move stuff around. I work with Gala Games, I work with Mythical Games, I work with Ultra. So all these games, so that NFT were going crazy at the time, right? It was full blown NFT summer, and everyone was so excited about this idea of, okay, people can own the thing, and then surely the game will come. The problem then is that then it took years to build the games, right? And so, of course, like the financialization essentially front run the whole experience, and there was no experience to show up to support that narrative. And then right now we've come the opposite way. There's almost like a scare in using financialization to bring players in, because now that we're starting to see more games, at least from indie devs. Again, it might be slightly different for companies, for bigger studios. There's also this scare of using financialization to entice players into your game. But I think it's just a great acquisition strategy. You can just mint them an NFT for free. You can give them some royalties. You can give them deeper degree of upside into the success of your game. And I think generally that's fine. The developer shouldn't be afraid of experimenting with it. Now, of course, if you're giving out money for free and you're expecting your token to be sustainable, that's not going to work. That's not a tokenomic that is sustainable. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I'm talking about is that a lot of financial markets are ultimately is a set of players in a way that try to reach a goal. And there's a lot of players that play games, even traditional games, that are called the spreadsheet games, right? The gameplay is collecting more resources. Like a great example is EVE Online. EVE Online is a game that has been going on for over the last 20 years. And there's a crazy stat, which is the average player of EVE Online have more saving within the game than the average US household. And so there are games that are definitely financialized and are super successful and have millions of daily active users. And I think that's a good fit for Web3, because of course you can translate that incentive to accumulate resources and to collect more and to trade stuff around, but now in an open economy. So this is just to say that I think there are also there are perhaps more apt for Web3, and genre that instead are more casual in nature, that invoke emotions of, okay, I just want to chill. I don't really want to deal with financialization. I don't want to think whether this person is trying to screw me by selling me this thing. And so there's different genre, but generally developers shouldn't feel afraid to embrace financialization to get more players if the game is there. Of course, if the financialization is the only thing, that's not going to work. We've seen that in 2021, and that definitely ruined and set us back by multiple years, because then you have to completely rewind the narrative. And whenever we were talking to traditional studios at GDC, they were all like trying to distance themselves from Web3 because all they heard is like scammy NFT, and there was no game to back up that narrative.
It's funny you say that, because I remember my first GDC, and I went up to a game developer. It was like somewhere in a lunch thing, and I was like, "Hey man, I'm in Web3 marketing," and the guy is like, "What is that, a game?" And I'm like, "No, I'm in Web3," and he's like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Are you in Web2 or Web3?" And he's like, "I'm a game developer," and I was like, "Yeah, in Web2 or Web3?" And he's like, "What the hell is Web2 or Web3? Like, what is this word you're saying right now?" And I was like, damn. I was like, yeah, I think the language that we use is just
really language bad. As well. Language is another big thing that's kind of created this divide. But yeah, it's funny. It's just funny to. I think the perception has changed over the years. Like in 2023, 2024 GDC, you could visibly tell that developers were more aware, less skeptical. Maybe there's still skepticism, but definitely less skeptical than the past years in terms of, okay, I don't want to even hear about this thing. But again, those are the ones that I would consider traditional players. They are people that are already in the industry and that are not aware of what is happening within the Solana ecosystem necessarily. And I don't think that they are necessarily the users that will buy Seeker. So again, as a game creator, you have to think, what is your community? What is the type of user base that you're going after? Because you might need to segment further and decide, okay, I want to go after a pure Web3 native crowd. I want to go after kind of a Web3 adjacent crowd, or I want to go after just a pure web traditional gamer crowd and just use crypto as on the background essentially.
Yeah. Last question? I know that we're coming up on the 40-minute marker. What do you think is the most underrated feature at MagicBlock? Like, what do you think people haven't really truly discovered or used it correctly at MagicBlock?
So one thing that I love to see more of is autonomous worlds, which was essentially this idea that you could build a game that lasts forever. I say was because it was a pretty big narrative that emerged after Loot, that spun out into two big projects, one of Optimism, one on Starknet. Dojo on Starknet, I think, is still around. The other one on Optimism, less so, but there's still a community there. And the idea is that you can use MagicBlock to build a fully persistent game that has no server and therefore doesn't rely on anybody to operate that game. And it becomes this digital world that users can alter and can shape based on their behavior and based on their choices. And it will be there forever. There's just literally no way to stop it, no way to shut it down, because it's on a blockchain. And a blockchain is a persistent, decentralized ledger. It stores information. It'll allow you to change that information. If all the information, all the data about the game is on chain, the game can be there as long as the blockchain will be around. And it's such a powerful and cool idea. And unfortunately, there's been not that much traction in terms of like purely autonomous world. We're doing a lot with fully on-chain game in general, but like this concept of building a world that lives forever has been underexplored. And in terms of feature, ultimately MagicBlock provides cheap, fast compute to any Solana developer. If you want to build an app, if you want to build a game, you can just build it on Solana, deploy your programs on Solana, and then use MagicBlock as if it was a verifiable server effectively. So you don't need to use a server at all. And I think that's the feature that we offer, that in the context of game development, I love to see more of using MagicBlock as a multiplayer game server. You don't need a multiplayer game server. You can use MagicBlock, and you will have if you build fully on chain, you'll have a game that lasts forever and nobody can stop.
Yeah, I think that's really has me thinking of the ways that we should figure out what the messaging would be for game developers to say, hey, like, there's a lot more to MagicBlock, right? I think that one thing. Shout out to your marketing team because they've killed it, and it's like, how can we get more of the messaging out, right? And sometimes it's actually just might be just a show and tell, right? Like, let the games itself do the show and tell to the rest of the folks, because I think that's always, the product at the end of the day will always speak for louder than anything else. Look, 45 minutes around on Andrea. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate all the information. Loved hearing what the roadmap looks like, what you guys are building, who you guys are, learning about, again, the obstacles in Web3 gaming. But I got to ask, man, next 6 months, what's one thing that I got to make sure I have on my calendar circled PTO at work, because I am going to be on MagicBlock Twitter, Discord, or in real life? If it's Breakpoint, even better. But tell me what date, or is there anything coming up that everybody needs to be aware of?
So of course, MagicBlock Mainnet is the biggest release that we're focusing on. MagicBlock is live with what we call a MagicNet, which is effectively the canary network of MagicBlock on Solana mainnet. But honestly, we ship very fast, we iterate very fast. There's just been a new game that has come out just right now. So if you go on our profile, you can check it out. It's a real-time strategy game with tradable cards. So it's kind of a mix between Marvel Snap and Clash Royale. And we just ship very, very fast, weekly sprints. And so you should expect a set of announcements coming from us. We are prepping a huge release that will unlock a ton of new cool feature for game developers in the span of a couple of weeks. But definitely the biggest announcement that we're going to focus on is the release of our mainnet in beginning of Q4.
I'm at the edge of my seat right now. Give me the name of the game, man. Come on.
It's Interstellar Command. You can check it out on our profile on X.
Right. There you go. That's the alpha. Andrea, MagicBlock.xyz, MagicBlock, Twitter. What plugs am I missing? How do we follow you, man? How do we make sure that I got my notifications on for you?
So I'm Super Mario Block. So if you want to follow me on X, that's my handle. I'm pretty active on Telegram. It's the same handle really, but yeah, following publicly on X is probably the best way.
All right, the inbound of DMs are going to be coming in now. So
Sure.
Everyone, make sure you follow MagicBlock. Appreciate you coming on to the show. Loved hearing the alpha. We're going to have to run this back. We're going to have to run it back after you guys are mainnet. I need to hear the stories. I need to find out what's happening after mainnet, and make sure we get catch up with all that what you guys are cooking, because we didn't even hit the 10.5 million in funding as well that you guys are just absolutely killing it. So congratulations to you guys as well. Web3 gaming is not dead. Crypto gaming is not dead. Blockchain gaming is not dead. Whatever you want to call it, gaming is not dead. So there you go. Whatever title you want to use. Andrea, thank you very much for coming on. Until the next one, man. Peace out. Have a good one.
It was a blast. Thanks for having us.